Do you know that the United States not only tries to establish peace on land, but even in the waters as well? For years, the most dangerous waters on Earth weren't in the Pacific or the Atlantic. They were here, the vast open expanse of the Indian Ocean and the Gulf of Aden, where tankers carry oil, container ships loaded with electronics, and fishing vessels from across the world sailed straight into ambushes. And the attackers were not any rival navies or hostile nations, but pirates. Yes, pirates in the 21st century. Not the kind with eye patches and parrots. These were desperate men in fast wooden skiffs, armed with AK-47s and rocket launchers, ready to take on ships the size of skyscrapers. For a time, they held the world hostage. Hundreds of crew members were kidnapped. Billions of dollars were drained in ransom payments and insurance hikes. The global trade was shaken to its core, but then something changed. The United States Navy, the most powerful Navy force in history, stepped in, and what followed was nothing less than a cat-and-mouse war on the high seas. A war fought with destroyers, helicopters, drones, and Navy SEALs against ragtag pirates who, for a terrifying moment, seemed unstoppable. This is the story of how America eliminated the pirate threat in the open ocean, and why, even now, the world is watching. To understand why this was such a big deal, you have to go back to the mid-2000s. Somalia had collapsed into civil war. Fishing communities had no jobs, no futures. And out of that chaos, small groups of young men realized something. They could hijack ships, demand ransom, and make more money in one raid than their entire village could see in a lifetime. By 2008, piracy wasn't a nuisance anymore. It was an industry. Motherships carrying fuel and supplies allowed pirates to strike hundreds of miles offshore. Crews were dragged into Somalia and held for months, sometimes years, in desert camps. In 2009 alone, pirates attacked over 200 ships. Imagine that a billion-dollar supertanker is brought to a halt by a speedboat and a couple of rifles. Global shipping companies were panicking. European navies sent patrols. NATO launched Operation Ocean Shield. But the most decisive blows would come from one country, the United States. In April 2009, the Maersk Alabama, an American cargo ship carrying food aid, was steaming through the Indian Ocean. Suddenly, it was swarmed by a group of Somali pirates. 4 armed men climbed aboard. The crew resisted, disabled the ship, and hid in the engine room. But the captain of the ship, Richard Phillips, was taken hostage and dragged into a lifeboat. What followed gripped the world. The USS Bainbridge, a guided missile destroyer, raced to the scene. Alongside it, the USS Halliburton and USS Boxer. U.S. Navy SEALs snipers were flown in, setting up on the deck, watching the tiny lifeboat bobbing in the waves. For 5 tense days, the standoff dragged on. The pirates demanded millions. The Navy tightened its circle. And then came the order. In a split second, 3 SEAL snipers fired 3 shots. All 3 pirates were killed instantly, and Captain Phillips was pulled out alive. That moment, captured in headlines and later turned into a Hollywood movie, was more than just a rescue. It was America sending a message. Attack our ships, and we will come for you. But that wasn't the only time. Over the next few years, the U.S. Navy carried out dozens of operations. In 2006, the destroyer USS Gonzales engaged pirates directly in the Gulf of Aden. When the pirates opened fire, the ship's cannons and helicopters responded with overwhelming force, sinking their skiff and capturing survivors. In 2011, the USS Sterett was involved in another high-stakes rescue. Pirates had captured a yacht carrying 4 Americans. Negotiations dragged on, but when shots were fired inside the yacht, Navy SEALs stormed in. All hostages were tragically killed, but more than a dozen pirates were captured and later brought to trial in the U.S. And throughout 2012 and 2013, American warships shadowed and intercepted pirate motherships, often hundreds of miles from land. Helicopters hovered overhead, blasting warning shots, boarding teams in rigid-hulled boats, stormed decks, zip-tying pirates at gunpoint. This wasn't random heroics, it was systematic. A relentless campaign to make piracy too dangerous to pursue. Here's why all of this mattered. The Indian Ocean isn't just another patch of water. It's the highway of global trade. Oil tankers from the Gulf, container ships from Asia, and even grain shipments headed to Africa all passed through these lanes. When pirates struck, it wasn't just about one ship. It meant higher insurance, rerouted voyages, and delays that rippled all the way into the supermarket prices. And that's why the US Navy came down so hard. For the sailors on the deck of a destroyer, it was simple. Keep the lanes open, keep the crew safe. For Washington, it was bigger, protecting the global economy by keeping the sea free of chaos. And the contrast was striking. On one side, pirates in small wooden boats clutching rifles. On the other hand, American warships, massive, armored, and backed by the most advanced military technology on Earth.
Alabama.
A Somali pirate who attacked 3 ships and took a captain hostage was sentenced in Lower Manhattan today. A judge gave him 33 years and 9 months in prison.
What made America's role even more unique was what happened after the battles. Instead of just sinking pirate boats and moving on, the US captured pirates and flew them across oceans to face trial. In New York, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., Somali pirates found themselves standing in federal courtrooms. A world away from the dusty villages they came from, some were sentenced to life in prison. For the first time in modern history, piracy wasn't just a game of catch and release. It was being treated as a crime with global consequences. And that mattered, because word spread quickly. The risks were higher, the ransom smaller, and the odds of survival were much worse. Every successful mission had ripple effects. Crews from India, Pakistan, and the Philippines, and Europe were saved by US ships. Families around the world owed their loved ones' safety to American intervention, and global shipping companies began to quietly rely on US naval patrols more than any other nations. In other words, hard military power was building soft diplomatic power. The US was earning influence not by speeches, but by action, by keeping the ocean safe. By 2015, the results were clear. Pirate attacks in the region had dropped by more than 90%. International task forces, led by NATO but heavily supported by the US, had squeezed the lifeblood out of the pirate economy. Insurance rates fell, trade normalized, and for a while the world could breathe easier. But piracy never fully dies, it mutates. As late as 2021, sporadic hijackings continued, and with global instability rising again, new hotspots in the Gulf of Guinea, for example, are testing whether the world's navies can keep up. The story isn't just about Somali pirates, it's about what control of the seas really means. Today, when people watch those grainy clips of Navy SEALs boarding ships or seeing real footage of destroyers escorting cargo convoys, they're not just looking at military drama, they're looking at a turning point. A moment when ragtag pirates challenged the system of global trade and were crushed by overwhelming force. The American message was clear. You can hijack fishing boats, you can threaten tankers, but if you take on the US Navy, your story will end at the bottom of the sea, or in a federal prison. And that's why for more than a decade, piracy in the open ocean has been in retreat. Because when America decided enough was enough, the high seas stopped being a playground for pirates and once again became a highway for the world.